Good afternoon and welcome to the PROSPEX Energy PLC investor presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged and they can be submitted at any time using the Q&A tab situated on the right-hand corner of your screen. Simply type in your questions and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question received during the meeting itself. However, the company can review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it is appropriate to do so. Before we begin, I would like to submit the following poll. And I would now like to hand you over to CEO Mark Routh. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, and thank you everyone for joining this webinar today. So obviously today we've had a good news announcement that RNS that we've completed on the acquisition of Taba Energia from Warrego Energy. And I'll be concentrating on that, but I'll be able to answer questions on anything else in the portfolio as we go along. So what I'm showing here is an updated corporate presentation, which has been posted on the website this morning. And I'm just going to run through the assets as we see it. For those that don't know PROSPEX, we have assets in Italy and in Spain, and the assets on this map here, coloured in yellow, are producing. And that's the Selva Malvezzi concession in northern Italy, the Viura project in northern Spain, and the El Romeral gas-to-power plant in southern Spain. We also have the exploration permit to the south of Spain, Tesorillo, and in Poland we're applying for licenses, license blocks onshore, and our applications are with the ministry now, which they're considering. And we are listed on the AIM market in London, and our ticket is PXEN. We have a new member joining us as of this week. Richard Jameson has agreed to join us as the COO of the company. He is also a significant shareholder in the company, having invested in the past two funding rounds in 2022 and in 2024. So I've known Richard a long time. He's an engineer and he's a very welcome addition to the team. With our acquisition of Taba now going to 100%, my workload has increased hugely. So I need to have a bit of extra help on the management team, and Richard's going to provide that. So I'm not going to read every slide out. People can look at the website and have a look at what's happening here. The Viura gas field in northern Spain is in production. I can answer questions on what's going on there as we go on. The operator is Heyco Energy, based in Dallas, Texas, and they are reviewing the production from the well and managing the asset. The water injection well, the water injection well Viura 3 didn't work, so it was part of the phase 1 program, and that has now been suspended as it's not suitable for injection. So they're looking at other means for handling the water production, which is coming out of the new well that's been drilled. So on to Romeral. Romeral is the asset we now own 100% of. So the acquisition of Taba Energia happened just yesterday. I was in Madrid having to sign a number of legal documents in front of a notary public in order to acquire the asset and transfer the shares from Warrego Energy into PROSPEX Energy. We've purchased it through our subsidiary, PXOG Muirhill, as it's called, and that itself owns now 100% of Taba Energia, the Spanish company through which we own our asset. So that means now we're 100% in the asset. This transaction has been a long time coming. I wish I could have done it sooner, but the Warrego Energy was selling its share in Taba and was in negotiation with a third-party buyer, having gone out to sell its shares. And it took them some 6 months in order to close the transaction and sign a sale and purchase agreement. Under the shareholders agreement with Taba, I had the right to preempt that deal if I so wished. So I had to wait for the deal to land and for that to be signed. I then preempted it last month, and this month we closed the transaction. We had 30 days to close the transaction, which we did just yesterday. So I wish I could have done it sooner, but that's the time frame I was working to. So what this has done, it's added reserves and it's added production income, which is significant for a company of our size. But significantly, we've managed to do this from our existing cash reserves within the company. Growing the company from existing production is to the benefit of all shareholders and the company. So this is an unchanged slide, but this is on the presentation on the website. It's showing the 5 wells that we are in the permitting process currently with El Romeral. And we've received news last week that there were no objections to the statutory consultation period for the environmental impact assessment of drilling these 5 wells. That is extremely good news, but we still have to wait for the mandatory consultees to respond to the ministry. There's a whole process that goes behind this, and I won't bore you with the details, but unfortunately, we do have to wait for the environmental impact assessment process to complete. It's the law of the land in Spain, and this is what we have to do. But significantly, the local junta, as it's called, the Junta de Andalucía in Seville, is very supportive of Tarba Energía, and there have been no local objections to the proposal to drill these 5 wells on this land, which is basically open farmland, and the environmental impact is minimal. And just to stress, we've been talking to the ministry about this, the environmental impact of drilling for onshore indigenous gas has a far lower carbon footprint than the importation of natural gas liquids, NGLs, LNG from America or from Dubai or from Qatar, where you have to compress, transport, and regasify that gas, all of which has a carbon footprint some 30 times that of producing natural gas onshore, locally, in Spain. We're trying to get that message across. So permitting these wells is a good thing for the environment. So on to Tesorillo. Part of the acquisition of Tarba means that PROSPEX now owns 100% of the Tesorillo asset. Before we were just at 15%, and we had the option to increase our share to 49.9%, but we'd have had to pay 1.7 million euros for that deal. We've acquired the whole of Tarba for 662,000 euros, and this includes the suspended Tesorillo exploration permit. Now, it is suspended, but back in May 21, we applied to convert that to an exploitation concession. That is so that we could drill a well on the concession. That is with the ministry under consideration. It's a thing for the future. The reserves here are 830 BCF, best estimate, prospective resources. That's not reserves, that's resources. That's a big number. So if we can get that going, this would be a complete game changer. So just to recap on Selva Malvezzi, that's been our cash cow, basically. It's been producing at 80,000 standard cubic meters a day. That's a gross number. Our net share of that, 37%. And that's been producing since the 4th of July, 2023. So this is all, those of you that know PROSPEX, this has all been on our website, and it's been just updated, slightly reformatted. We've got 4 wells in the permitting process in the Selva Malvezzi concession. They're labeled here, Selva North, Selva South, Ricadina, and East Selva. And we hope to get that permitted toward the end of this year so that we can get drilling by the Q1 of 2026. Again, we're in the lap of the gods when it comes to the permitting process and the timing for the ministry to approve those things. Significantly, though, the operator Po Valley is talking to the landowners for the well sites and the pipeline routes to tie these new fields back to the existing processing plant and new processing plants if it's required to do so. In Poland, we've got these applications with the ministry, as I mentioned before, and we hope to hear sometime later this year. Again, we're in control of the timing of when the ministry can approve our applications. When they approve our applications, they hopefully will approve it, and then because they have to publicly gazette the fact that we have applied to allow anyone else to counterbid for the same acreage. We're confident that the technical work that we have put in will mean that our work programme proposed is going to be better than anyone else's. So that's an update of our net reserves and resources and prospective resources position on account of the increase of the share that we have in Taba Energia. And here we have the net production, which now stands at some 78,600 standard cubic meters per day. And I'll come back to that number later on some of the questions that have been asked on the Q&A, which I can see are popping up already. So actually, that's all I'm going to speak to on the presentation today. Here's an updated schedule of the drilling. This is my earliest estimated timeline for drilling. So you can see the Romeral concessions. It's going to be Q4 this year, Q1 next year. But it's all depending on when the ministry says yes. The permits for drilling the Viura wells are already secured, but we've been advised by the operator, Heco Energy, that that's not going to happen before the 1st of July this year. And that's for reasons they want to get the 3D seismic reinterpreted in order to optimize the drilling targets there. It's a data-led decision, and that was advised in the RNS as of this morning. In Italy, as I said before, the permitting process is underway, and the operator is advising me that the 3D seismic is going to be shot in July, August of this year. That reinterpretation will be a fairly short process, and we hope to get the permits in by the end of this year for kicking off drilling in Q1 2026. That, as I said, is my earliest estimated drilling timeline, and I know there's been a lot of comments on this. And so I'll try and keep everyone updated as much as possible. So that's all I was going to talk to on the presentation today. So I can now finish the formal presentation and address any questions that are coming in.
Fantastic, Mark. Thank you very much indeed for your presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, please do continue to submit your questions using the Q&A tab situated on the top right corner of your screen. While the company take a few moments to review those questions submitted today, I would like to remind you that a recording of this presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your investor dashboard. Mark, as you can see, we have received a number of questions throughout today's presentation, and if I may now hand back to you and kindly ask you to read out the questions where appropriate to do so, and I'll pick up from you at the end.
Right, the first question is, what is happening with the Viura ST3 well? Can it produce in future? Now, what's happening with this well, the operator is telling us that they have flowed this well on a number of occasions, and it's produced more water again. This is the well that was producing water and gas previously. It is producing a fair bit of water. So at the moment, it is currently shut in. It can produce, but it's shut in as the operator manages the water. There is water coming in from the new well, Viura 1B, that was drilled in December. And because the water injection well is not operable, they're having to manage the water production from the field. So that's why ST3 is shut in. But Viura 1B is still viable and is producing. The operators told me that they intend to test the Utrilus B reservoir in the slim hole section beneath the Viura 1B well sometime soon. Now that I'm waiting to hear what the operations are happening, and so I can update everyone on on the production rates that we should see from the Chulis B reservoir, which was previously not drilled by anyone who owned the field previously. Now, the next question is an extremely difficult question to answer. The question is, what is the monthly profit from all operations? Now, this is a difficult question to answer without giving misleading answers. The point is, as everyone knows who's invested in this company, you have revenue and you have income. Obviously, income is the revenue minus costs, taxes, royalties, and overheads, and all that. So if I was to indicate what the revenue is per month, that could be misleading because we have taxes, royalties, and overheads to pay, which go up and down during the month. People ask me, how much cash have you got? Yes, I know exactly how much cash we got on a weekly, if not daily basis. We keep a watch on that. But to answer the question as much as I can, the trouble is that I need to get the audited accounts to find out what the final answer is. But I'm not going to just duck the question here. I'm going to point you to the slide, which I hope you can still see, where we are showing that the net production from PROSPEX is some 78,600 standard cubic meters per day. Now, I looked at the TTF gas price this morning, and it was at 35 euros per megawatt hour. That's equivalent to some 36 euro cents per standard cubic meter. You multiply that together, you get a gross revenue per month of some 850,000 euros. Now, that is probably the most accurate number I can give you. But off that number, we have to pay VAT in Spain, VAT in Italy at 22%. We have taxes in Spain and royalties in Spain and Italy to pay. We have overheads, we have OPEX. Plus, all of our investments are held through our subsidiaries. Subsidiaries which are, because we're an investment company, where we do not consolidate the net revenues and profits up to the top company. That is because we are an investing company. And the accounting rules don't allow us to do that. Now, we do know what the position is within each subsidiary, and each subsidiary is reinvesting that cash into the assets. So what that means is the last two cash calls from Viura were covered from production income. The last three cash calls on Selva were funded from net production. We just funded the Taba acquisition from production income. So all of this is good. And we are an investing company, and we have profits in the company which we are using to reinvest into the assets. Now, I've given you the headline gross revenue number. From that, there's a very variable number which comes out each month on taxes, on royalties, on overheads, on VAT, etc. I'm not going to mislead people by saying it's this much forever or this much per month. Okay. What we are doing is reinvesting into the assets. And if we have to raise money to do anything more to grow the company, if we have to do that, then all of that goes into the ground. It doesn't go into paying salaries or overheads. So that's the important thing about PROSPEX. We are debt-free and we have our overheads covered. Now, one last thing to mention is, in the Viura update in the RNS this morning, I did point out that the operator HECO Energy of Iberia is looking at project financing for the development wells on their project. That is the same thing as a debt facility. What that means is that we can hopefully buy from the production which is coming from the field, we can essentially mortgage that and borrow money against it to pay for the drilling. If we can do that, then there's the requirement to raise further money for the drilling of Viura could go away completely, and that could be debt financed. Now, that will be good for shareholders in that it won't dilute anyone. But this is why it's all depending on production happening, and it depends on the gas price holding up. So there's a lot of variable numbers in here. So I can't give an absolute guarantee exactly what's going to happen, but the longer that the drilling gets delayed, the more cash we have to fund it. That was a fairly long answer, but it's a difficult question, as I hope you'll agree. Okay, the next question here is from Martin H. Now that you own 100% of Taba, what does that mean in terms of near-term production growth, and how quickly can we expect those 5 new wells to start contributing? I think I've largely answered those questions in there. The pie charts that are, hopefully you can still see on the screen now, show how the production has increased since the last update, where it was showing 70,000 standard cubic meters per day. So the acquisition of 100% of Taba has boosted our production by some 8,600 standard cubic meters a day. As for the 5 wells, I've given you the schedule for that. The earliest that I can see that happening is Q4 this year or Q1 next year. Okay, question from Ryan D. Hi, you have said many times that overheads are covered, which in investors' view is a bad terminology as indicates break even. No, okay, well, I'll come to that. In the past, we mentioned a growing balance sheet, which is better, but can you give any time a group cash position to show the growth? Well, I've tried to answer the group cash position just now. When I say overheads are covered, I mean that overheads are comfortably covered. It doesn't mean we're breaking even. Our overheads are certainly not anywhere close to the gross revenue I mentioned earlier. We're a very low overhead company. We don't have a physical office in London or anywhere else. The only physical offices we have are in Carmona in Spain, where we now own 100% of Taba. And we are non-operator in Italy and in northern Spain, so we don't own those offices. We do have to, however, pay our share of the OPEX for running those businesses. Okay, monthly income profit per month is another question. I've addressed that as far as I can go. The income and profit, obviously, after gross revenues, this is something which I cannot give you a firm number for each of the subsidiaries. Okay, a question from Colin W. Does this now mean PXEN is classed as an operator? The answer to that is no. I had to clear this with our nominated advisor, and the nominated advisor asked AIM. And it all comes down to the pie charts, which I still see on the screen. The fact that 100% acquisition of Taba means that our share of production went from 10% to 20%, so 22%, means that because we have significant assets where we are a minority holder and non-operator in both Viura and in Selva, the AIM panel was not concerned that we were being classed as an operator. We are still an investing company, and therefore there was no challenge to our status as an investing company. So whilst we are going to be helping Taba Energia manage the asset, it is Taba Energia which is the operator, not PROSPEX Energy.
Fantastic. Mark, if I may just jump back in there. And thank you for addressing all those questions from investors today. And of course, the company can review all questions submitted today and will publish those responses on the Investor Meet Company platform. But Mark, before we redirect investors to provide you with their feedback, which I know is particularly important to the company, could I please ask you for a few closing comments?
Well, I'm here to grow the company and make it bigger and make it a better value for shareholders. It is extremely frustrating that the share price has not moved above the price at which we had to raise money to do the Viura transformational acquisition last August. Now, the number of factors that are happening here, general market conditions, I'm not going to claim or blame anyone else for it. It is difficult on the AIM market. There's a couple of things which have happened to us. In In the past, we have been supported by some high net worth individuals that have really helped the company out. Two of those senior high net worth individuals died last year. And it is my understanding that the probate means that their estates are having to manage the portfolio, and in particular, HMRC is demanding probate before anything happens. So I understand that some of these large shareholders have been selling down their shares in the company, which is one possible reason why there's been some selling activity. But it would seem to me that whenever I have a good news RNS, the frustrating thing is any small increase in the price results in people selling into it. I can't dictate that. All I can do is do my best to grow the company and to grow value for shareholders. And I hope you'll believe that I'm doing the best job I can, because I am trying my best.
Mark, that's great. Thank you once again for updating investors today. Could I please ask investors not to close this session, as you will now be automatically redirected to provide your feedback in order that the board can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete, and I'm sure will be greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of PROSPEX Energy PLC, we would like to thank you for attending today's presentation, and good afternoon to you all.
Thank you very much for attending.